In my sermon this morning, I described the fall. How human beings, after being given everything they could ever possibly need by God, became convinced that because they lacked something, this must mean that they didn't have enough. What they lacked was the knowledge between good and evil, the ability to see and experience a world with God in it, and experience one without him. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 6, we read that when the woman Eve saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it. When Adam and Eve ate the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they made a conscious decision to seek out the one thing that the Lord withheld from them, because he knew they were better off without it. But what I find interesting in this passage is the use of the word wisdom. The scripture says that Eve ate the tree upon realizing that it was desirable for gaining wisdom. Wisdom. Isn't wisdom something that's supposed to be a good thing? Something we're supposed to seek out and covet? Throughout the Bible, especially in places like Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, wisdom is described as something that comes to us from God. And it's more precious than the finest jewels or even gold and silver. It's priceless. In Proverbs chapter 9, it even says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. But here is Eve in the Garden of Eden, choosing to disobey God, the very source of wisdom, because she thinks it's going to make her wise. So how do we reconcile this? Well, there's actually a language barrier that exists between us and the biblical text. And this explains how the word wisdom can, in one sense, be used as the source of all that is good, and in another, be the very thing that Eve desires that leads to humanity's downfall. In Proverbs, the Hebrew word for wisdom is chokmah, and it's used to describe the knowledge of God. Chokmah is good. It's resting in God's divine goodness and seeking his guidance for all the decisions we make. But this is different from what Eve seeks. In Genesis, the word translated as wisdom is sakal, and it describes looking for knowledge and insight from ourselves. It's a kind of self-derived enlightenment, looking for insight on what decisions to make based solely on our own experiences and not looking to our Creator for guidance. Adam and Eve relied on their own insights, their sakal, and we've been doing the same thing ever since. If the Genesis story can tell us anything, it's that we need to rely on God. True wisdom that aligns with the harmony God created the world with can only come from him. The moment we look to our own devices, we're lost. We're misguided. We're doomed to repeat the same mistakes of our past. And we only harm one another and the rest of the creation along the way. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, brothers and sisters. And knowledge of him is the only path that leads to understanding.